progress. We're going to start today's session with a conversation with Ihar Mahaniok, managing partner at Geek Ventures. Ihar is a longtime angel investor turned VC. Ihar, welcome to the program and great to meet you.
Thank you, Sramana. I'm really glad to be here. And happy to chat about investing. This is something I've been really passionate for the last 15 years of my life. And bringing some engineering background to it is, and immigrant background to it is also important.
Well, now, where are you originally from?
I'm from Belarus. I used to live in Switzerland for a bit, and then I moved to the US 12 years ago.
And you were based in New York?
I'm based in New York, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So let's start with, since this is your first appearance in this program, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to Geek Ventures. I know you did a lot of angel investing before starting Geek Ventures, but even before that, what were you doing?
So I was fascinated by technology since early childhood. I was fortunate to have access to a computer since I was 5. And I started coding when I was 12, and it was clear to me that I would go to the computer science program in the university. And then after college, I joined Google back in 2007, moved to Switzerland. And at Google, I was engineering. I was working as an engineer and specifically working on different ranking, recommendations, and machine learning problems. Starting with Google search, continuing with maps personalization, Android personalization, and so on. While at Google, I realized that just being an engineer was a bit too limiting for me. And I was interested to go explore more of the business side of things. And that's what led me to attend a lot of conferences, meet a lot of founders, and eventually use this network to start investing as an angel. When I started investing as an angel, I was able to basically, develop stronger relationships, to learn more about how the businesses operate from CEO's point of view, and pass insights from one company to another, all while helping those companies to interact with Google and other big tech. I moved to the US and then switched to work at Facebook, and was working there again on machine learning problems. I went up the engineering leadership ladder while continuing to invest as an angel. Most interesting from angel perspective, I did about 60, 70 investments, and 5 of them went all the way to be unicorns. From seed, right? So the most famous one is Instacart, and PandaDog is another one where the founders are also from Belarus as me. And there are also companies like Airbyte, People AI, and Jeeves. So I also worked a bit in a startup where called Lightning AI. I joined at a seed stage. I was VP of engineering. They're responsible for growing the engineering and AI research team. Grew the team to 30 people, helped to raise a big round from Index Ventures. And I felt that it was time for me to start something new, right? So, and while I did consider for a bit becoming a founder, CEO, building a startup, raising venture from VCs, I realized that both my network, my experience, and my passion lead me much more to actually being an investor full time. So that's how 4 years ago I decided to start a VC firm. And I landed on the name Geek Ventures. I landed on a thesis of investing in immigrant founders. And both of these are really reflecting me. I always feel I'm a geek, and being an engineer, being like really deep thinker is a part of me. And I also like to invest in geeks. And I also an immigrant, and I like to invest in immigrant founders. And I think this is both where the value is for the LPs, because the immigrants are statistically have higher chance of success, but it's also where we can help, right? So because they're often underfunded, overlooked, and we know that talent is distributed evenly, but opportunity is not. Over the last 4 years, leading Geek Ventures, we have invested in about close to 60 companies already in our portfolio, and quite a few of them have gone and raised significant rounds after us. And we are right now focusing mostly on AI and robotics companies, investing at pre-seed and seed. So we do
And how
about
big
investments.
is the Geek Ventures fund?
$23 million.
10 million?
$23 million.
$23 million. Okay.
Yep.
$23 million. All right. And what size checks do you write? These pre-seed and seed checks, what size?
So we are our range is between 100 and K and a million. Most often about $500,000.
Okay. Now, I want to understand a little bit of how you find companies. So you talked about 5 unicorns that you invested in as an angel investor, 2 of which we have had here in our Entrepreneur Journey series, People AI and PandaDoc we've had here in our Entrepreneur Journey series. So I know those companies, those case studies pretty well. How did they come to you, or how did you get to them?
So a lot of this is about a mix of utilizing my network and being curious and reaching in outbound. So PandaDoc was actually, in a way, an outbound for me. I was going online, looking at a lot of information about startups, and I came across a pitch competition. And you know, there are a lot of pitch competitions, right? But I looked at this particular pitch competition. PandaDoc was a winner. I looked at their deck. I saw that it was interesting in a space. It was very early. They were like 3 people company, but they already has initial revenue. Probably they had like a couple clients. I reached out to them and they wanted to talk to me. And that was very interesting. That was a time when they were about to move to the US. And while they already had revenue, they had less access to investors. So they were actually, it was a very good match, because for me, it was obvious that the guys know what they're doing. They're very, very shrewd in terms of both business and product development. And they would benefit from me stepping in as an angel with some of my connections. Back then, of course, I had fewer connections than now, but still, I could help them a bit. And yeah, so I ended up investing in the very first round. With People AI, it was a very clear case of strong network. It was actually a case where another founder of a company that I didn't invest, but we had a really good relationship, introduced me to them. It was a founder of a company called PetCube. You might have heard, also Ukrainian founder. I had a very good relationship with the founder of PetCube, and he emailed me, "Hey, Ihar, take a look at this company. A friend of mine is doing it, and you need to talk to them." And I talked to Oleg, CEO of People AI. At that point, again, it was a 2 or 3 people company. They were very early. They actually didn't have any revenue, but that was the most convincing conversation I had in my life, probably, right? So in 30 minutes, he completely floored me with his both background and ability to sell. And I was absolutely sure that he will be able to hire, he will be able to sell, he'll be able to build a product. And I invested in the first round, and a couple of weeks after I invested, they got accepted to Y Combinator. And right after Y Combinator, they got around with Andreessen Horowitz, and then, yeah, they went on.
And when you talk about investing in AI, double click down for me. Of course, People AI is an early AI company. When you invest in AI, what is your investment thesis in AI?
So the main thesis is disruption, right? Disruption and efficiency and optimization, right? So, for example, right? So we invest in AI in many, many legacy sectors. But think about, let's say, healthcare. This is a sector that existed for obviously like thousands of years, right? So people need healthcare, people pay for healthcare. Right now in the US, healthcare spend as a whole is about $1 trillion. Or even more, right? So what does it mean? What's the majority of this spend? The majority of this spend is actually salaries of people that do work like inefficiently, right? Some of these are very, very important, efficient work that's like not replaceable, like surgeons and so on. But a lot of this work is administrative, right? So a lot of this work is paperwork, like with actual paper, with faxes, or Excel spreadsheets or ERPs and so on. So the question is, how much of this $1 trillion of spend could be made more efficient, right? We obviously see that with AI, we can write emails faster, right? So we can schedule calendar events faster, right? This is obvious that everybody can do, right? We can write notes, like for example, we can collect notes from the meetings faster. Where are there efficiencies in specific jobs, and where is the time savings? And often you save time and by AI, and the company that is making the solution, the software AI solution that saves significant time, can charge way less than that the client already spends, and still bring the same value or even more value, right? So, and this is basically the main angle, right? So we are looking at legacy industries that are not enough like enabled by tech. Some of them, again, use still pre-internet, pre-technology, pre-computer things like paper and fax, and some use internet, but they use it very primitive, like Excel from the 90s, and see where we can optimize this, right? So this is a very big investment thesis. That's on vertical AI. There is a second big investment thesis on horizontal AI, and this is about building tools that help other companies build AI internally, right? So this is, for example, we recently invested in a company that does cybersecurity for AI, right? So this company itself doesn't optimize anything, but they create a framework, the scaffolding for their clients to be able to run AI agents inside that are fully audited, that have proper permissions, that are protected from being able to delete important information or access information that they can't access and so on. So because a lot of their clients need to implement AI, right? And then our third main focus around AI is about robotics. And this is what we call AI in physical world, right? Robotics existed for a long time. Of course, there were some robots 10, 20 years ago. But now with AI, we see much more automation and like actual behavior, smart behaviors possible with robots. It's now less about moving similar to a human, right? So like joints and so on, and much more, can this robot, physical device, distinguish between, is it a cup? Is it a plate, right? So do I need to, wash this cup? Is it dirty or not? Like that kind of like stuff that is only possible with AI, right? So and we are looking at that.
So let's take a few of your investments through Geek Ventures that fit into these three buckets of investment thesis, and let's do some case studies. And as you were talking about them, double click down on how they found you or how you found them, and what was it about them that made you decide to write the check?
So, okay, let's, for example, talk about the company Cytronic. It's still pretty early. We invested last year, and that company uses robots to build fully automated warehouses, right? So, and what their service is fulfillment. They offer their customers are e-commerce companies that need their stuff to be shipped to the car. And their customers already use 3PL warehouse services. And there are a lot of 3PL warehouses that operate with a lot of labor. I think overall 3PL warehouse market in the world is about $1 trillion. And I think it's about 200 billion just in the US. And what Cytronic has identified is that right now, the robots, both physical devices themselves and the AI for them, are strong enough to actually replace humans and make it significantly cheaper, like 10x, 20x or more cheaper than humans. And they work 24/7, and they can operate in different kind of spaces. They're not limited by, for example, how humans are limited by their height and so need to sit down and so on. So And that company is fairly early. They're building out, and but they are already. It's already clear that they are on the way to having the best, amazing solution. How did I find them? It's a very interesting because it was a combination of multiple things, right? So a few of my friendly VCs pointed me out to, hey, this guy who has previously built other two companies, these two guys, actually founders, who previously built other two companies in fulfillment, e-commerce fulfillment space, building a new company. And their previous companies were Warehouse and Ship. And another angle that I was actually an investor in a Warehouse as well, so I knew the founders through that angle, right? So, and it was very interesting. It was both direct network where I knew the company they were founded before, and I was alerted to this through my warm network that I keep very strong with a lot of other VCs. And why I invested very, very early, why we as Geek Ventures invested, it was a very good mix of very ambitious vision, right? So it's like these guys are building at least a unicorn, maybe decacorn in a space that's like $1 trillion market. They are fairly unique, so there's not many credible competitors yet, and they have the best possible founder market fit, right? So they knew the market in and out. They know all the customers. They know all the pains. They know exactly what needs to be done.
Do they come from that industry, from the
Yes,
retail industry?
that's exactly what I was saying, right? So there are two previous companies that they worked on probably for 10 years. Were in fulfillment, yes.
And what was the idea? Were they, or are they, buying robots from other robotics providers, or are they going to do their own robots?
So I cannot go too deep into how it works, right? So, but as always, it's some sort of a mix, right? So the idea there is that they need to do everything they could to build the most efficient, effective solution in a space that existed for a while, like warehouses and logistics and shipments have existed before internet and before AI. And the question is, how can you make it more efficient?
So let me ask you a slightly broader trend question based on this case study that you just took us through, which is really exciting and interesting. There is a lot of talk right now in the industry about, full vertical AI solutions in all kinds of different industry spaces, right? So how do you see that playing out? Is it going to be, there is also, like General Catalyst is kind of doing private equity deals on vertical solution companies, and then their thesis is to gut it all out and put AI into the whole company and then take it from there. That's their vertical AI thesis. There's also vertical AI products being developed that are being sold to those kinds of companies, et cetera, et cetera. They're all variations of vertical AI thesis floating around. What is your vertical AI thesis?
So I actually would separate this into two separate buckets. One is vertical AI software, and one is AI services. The biggest difference is that vertical AI software is sold to clients, to businesses that are using the software to deliver service, right? So for example, if a company is doing AI voice agents for healthcare, they are not doing healthcare. They're selling the voice agents to companies that does healthcare, right? So, and that's vertical AI software. In a way, this is an iteration of software as a service, like SaaS, but is a very, very clearly focused on significant savings and efficiency. And this is a big part of what we do. And this is where it's important that they are understanding their clients. And this is where a lot of still like SaaS approaches can go, right? So like payment by seat or payment by usage and so on. There is a separate bucket, which is AI services. And this is where there is a final service where the client gets a service instead of a software.
Yeah.
And what is interesting there is that AI services companies, when they provide service, their client doesn't really care if that's done by AI or by human, right? So the most obvious example that a lot of companies started doing is trying to do AI recruiting service, right? So like, so you could hire a recruiting agency and they will find you candidates for your job, right? So, and you as a client, you don't necessarily care if they use the human to to manually look for these candidates, or they use the AI to automatically look for those candidates. The end result is the same, you get candidates, right? This is separate from vertical AI software, right? So where you actually...
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a business process outsourcing.
Yeah.
AI business process outsourcing.
So what is important there is that vertical AI software is an evolution of SaaS, and SaaS itself was a very much venture backable for a long time. And obviously PandaDoc and People AI are both SaaS solutions, right? So, and these companies have been around for a long time, and both of them are now even more and more AI first. While service companies for a long time were not really venture backable, because typically service companies involved a lot of operational and labor overhead, which meant that they couldn't grow as fast as the others. Now, though, you can build AI services company much faster because you just need to hire less people, and therefore they become venture backable. And this is what the story you said about General Catalyst and other VC firms that do roll-ups, right? So they would buy...
two different categories, though. I think the roll-up story and the services story are not necessarily the same.
They're not necessarily the same, but they're kind of...
They're two different buckets still.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot. The services part, we've covered quite a bit. And what's one of the things that's happening in India right now is because of India's services industry, IT services background, there's a natural fit on AI services. And there's a lot of interesting companies coming out with that model of providing AI solutions, but it's a service, basically. It's some service that is built on top of their own intellectual property. But it's instead of selling software, they're selling the full solution.
This is, yeah. And let's not go into roll-ups. That's also not focus for us. But AI services are definitely a focus for us. Yeah. And if you come back to the company I spoke about, Cytronic, in the end, this is also AI and robotics service because their clients buy fulfillment. Their clients pay, per fulfilled package. And the clients don't care if a human puts their SKU in a package or a robot does. They only want to work with Cytronic because Cytronic is cheaper and more efficient and faster, right? So, and similarly, I see a lot of potential in AI services in all sorts of worlds, right? So like be it accounting or legal services and so on, so right? So anywhere where you order a service which is somewhere remote and typically done by a human can be now replaced, right? So for example, of course, right now, this is mostly the things like, white collar office work, like again, accounting or legal, but we can get to the world where AI services could go into like front office, things like
let me ask you an
interesting...
Let me ask you an interesting question. We have companies like this in our portfolio, really interesting, exciting companies. And there is a question that these companies have to answer, which is which go-to-market strategy, which business model do they, go with? Do they go with the selling software to the client's business model, or do they go with the selling services to the end customer's business model? Because they could do either in many cases.
That's a very good question. And to me, the right answer would be about where do you have better sales connections, sales experience, and where does your sales pitch land better, right? So, and for example, right, so if you have connections, like let's say a lot of accounting firms then maybe better to sell software to accounting firms, because these are the clients they might already know you, you might already have a lot of reputation there. But let's say you are building accounting software, but you don't know many accounting firms. Maybe then, but instead you know a lot of just regular startups of general kind. Then instead you go and try to sell accounting services to those companies instead of selling to accounting firms. So I think, by the way, in general, I think that we don't like to be in a position to advise on very like this high level, big questions on go-to-market. We like to invest in companies where they know what go-to-market they have, where they have some unfair advantage on go-to-market. And my advice to founders, like, think, where do you have unfair advantage on go-to-market? Because right now, especially in this world where writing software became more and more automated, it became less and less of differentiation. Your main differentiation is go-to-market, network, sales. So you should think where your special advantage is and go to those customers.
Great answer. I will give you one other nuance to how our companies are making this decision. They're also thinking about exit strategy.
Yeah.
Because this complete vertical ground up thing is new, and that has less exit potential in some cases, in a lot of cases, than building the software as a service or pure software companies, and they would have easier exit paths. And that is also a consideration that people are making. And I'll give you one other thought process that are going on in our portfolio, at least, is that, what is the schedule in which AGI happens? This is a question that is being discussed a lot in the venture circles right now, is that, if AGI comes in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, each of those make a very different strategy, or steer towards a very different strategy than, otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
this is right. So I don't know when AGI happens, right? So what is important is that AGI is still about thinking, right? So it's so maybe if AGI happens, and by the way, we are not sure that it actually will ever happen, right? From VC perspective,
I'm surrounded by AGI bulls, but I'm also surrounded by people who think that no, it's not going to happen.
I need to operate on both.
You have to consider both. From what we do,
both,
we have to consider both. Yes.
So from my perspective, if it's very important to build out the mode that doesn't necessarily depend on thinking, right? And this is where every company we invest in, we are immediately thinking, how does it compete against future open AI solutions that will have potentially much better thinking, much better AGI? And the biggest important thing there is, does the workflow look unique in terms of, like, for example, right, AI for healthcare would have already, the company that we would invest would have angle to solve regulatory challenges, right? So they would have solved integration challenges, right? So, and obviously
integration is a good mode. Integration is a very good mode.
The most thinking model is not integrated, and didn't solve the regulatory challenges, so it cannot do it. And then there is another thing, is connections, right? And knowing people, right? And knowing people also means like having their data, having data modes, having customers and so on. So it's thinking about, like, you can hire let's say for your head of sales, you could hire Einstein, and he will fail, even though he is one of the smartest humans in the world, right? Because he doesn't necessarily have the right connections or the right experience of doing that particular job, right? So, and the connections is a big part of what we see, right? So that's basically connected to data mode.
Good point. The data mode is also becoming a little bit tricky because of the synthetic data that is now becoming very easily available and accessible. So that one is starting to get a question mark against it. Data mode was a big mode for a while, and now that's starting to come under question. This is a great conversation, Ihar. Thank you for coming. We'll have you back. I know you have to run. And
thank you, Simona.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and I'm really glad to be here. And thank you for your engaging questions. I really enjoyed it.
Same here.
Thank you.
Folks,